It's now time for part of the event that many of you came here for, the gubernatorial candidate debate. Our moderator for today's debate, for the gubernatorial candidate debate, is John Spivey. John is a former Tarrant County Libertarian Party chair. He is a current executive committee member for Denton County and is a current member of the State Libertarian Executive Committee. Everyone, please welcome Mr. John Spivey.
Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for being here. I'm hoping that you'll find this interesting and educational. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the setup is and the rules, and then we'll introduce the candidates. First of all, each candidate drew their lot individually, so that's how we determined the order. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we'll ask a series of questions. Each candidate will get 90 seconds to answer that, and then if a single candidate wants to ask another candidate for clarity, they have 60 seconds to do so. They'll be chosen randomly, and then that candidate will have 30 seconds to rebut. And then at the end, we'll have a 2-minute wrap up. Yes? Oh, okay. Oh, much better. Okay, so again, by random drawing, first candidate on stage is Corey Watkins. Then we have Kathy Glass, Mr. Mark Tippett, and Patrick Smith. Thank you. All right, and please have a seat if you would like to do so. And we'll start off, and by the way, we have Kat Stedman, who will be our timekeeper. At 10 seconds, she will give the high sign. When you're out, she'll give this, and then I will tell you to be quiet. So, all right. So, Corey, if you'd like to go ahead and start off, your time starts now.
Wonderful event. I want to thank everybody for showing up here. I want to thank the host for putting this on. This is awesome, awesome event. Thank you so much. Thank you to the other candidates for being here as well. And I'm excited to be here. I traveled 3.5 hours in the darn rain again this week to get here, but we are a dedicated campaign, and that's what this campaign is about, is dedication and determination and getting other people involved. We've been traveling all across the state, speaking a bold message of freedom, gun freedoms, no law, no rule, no regulations, cannabis freedoms, no laws, no rules, no regulations, and tax freedoms. We want to get rid of property taxes immediately and reduce all other taxes down to zero. These are bold messages that we've been taking across Texas. All demographics have been eating up this message. We have black people, we have Hispanic people, we have the young crowd getting on our team, Democrats quitting their party, Republicans quitting their party, independents, people from all over joining our campaign because this message is very bold. And so that's what we've been doing. I've been campaigning since May, and we've been taking it very serious, going all over the state, gaining delegate support, and that's why I'm here. I'm here to gain some more delegate support, so please come see me. And thank you for everybody for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Butts.
Well, they asked us, do we want to stand up or sit down? And I said, I'll stand up for the whole thing when the other guys do it wearing high heels, too. Kathy Glass, Libertarian for Texas Governor. I want to be your governor to fight two threats to our liberty: an out-of-control federal government who deliberately and constantly violates the Constitution and nothing being done about it, and cronyism here in the swamp we call Austin. Chief Justice John Roberts in the Obamacare case said, states are sovereign and independent entities. Sometimes they have to act like it. Well, Texas needs a governor who knows that she is the head of a sovereign state and will push back on federal tyranny here in Texas. Sometimes people ask, are you going to run for president? I respond, I want to be Texas governor. Why would I accept a demotion? Well, that gets a laugh, but it's true. If you love liberty, the Texas governor is the most important, powerful office on earth. And that's because only Texas can fight back against this federal tyranny, but only if we have the right governor. Our current governor thinks that suing in federal court is standing up to Washington. I say don't sue the buzzards, arrest them. He thinks an Article 5 convention is what we need to get our liberty back. I said, no, don't wait a decade for 37 other states to give us permission to act like the sovereign we are. I've run before. I know what it means to be top of the ticket. And sometimes the votes that you create don't show up in your column, but they do down ballot. I know how to work with candidates to bring the best out, and then I can get media attention. I always have my whole life, and I do it when I run for governor. And I care about the Texas people. They know that, the voters. I don't wait for events to happen.
10 seconds.
I make events happen. And I'm going to make an event happen on March 2nd, Texas Independence Day in San Antonio. Come and visit with me. Kathy Glass for Texas Governor, kathyclass.org. Thank you.
Kathy. Mr. Tippett.
Thank you. I believe, oh, there you go. Thank you. I'm very humbled to be here. It's an honor to be in the presence of these distinguished candidates here. I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and especially thank them. I know what it's like to be a candidate. I know what it's like to run for office on the Libertarian ticket. It's not easy. Kathy and I have been running since 2010, and we know what it's like to run a Libertarian campaign. I would like to tell you a little story. Last year, I was on the city council. A city had acquired a golf course by eminent domain, which made it so we had 2 golf courses. And we were losing money at the tune of $1 million a year subsidizing those golf courses. As a sitting council member, I made a proposal to eliminate paying the subsidies for those golf courses. The proposal never passed. It ultimately failed, and we had a compromise proposal to shut 1 golf course down. The golfers, needless to say, were extremely mad. They got together, and I lost in the next election. I never make any decision based on politics. I made a decision based on principles, based on libertarian principles, and I will never waver from that. I want to represent the Libertarian Party and the libertarian principles in a way we can all be proud, in a way that we can stand up and say, this is our party. This is the Texas party. I want to reach out to everybody with a message of United for Liberty. Unidos por Libertad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tippett. Mr. Smith.
Hello, I am Patrick Smith. I'm running for not governor of Texas. That means that I want each and every person in this room to be governor of themselves. The only thing sovereign around here is each and every one of you. I'm a father of 3 unschooled children. I'm a husband to a geneticist wife who's a combat war veteran. I am a technology entrepreneur in the automotive and power sports space. I love living and breathing capitalism. I'm a philosopher, which basically just means that inconsistency annoys me, and I love a really good debate, which is why I'm excited to be here today. I'm also an activist, which means that I have a strong passion to improve the world by spreading our message. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And now for the first question. Last session, a bill was placed in front of Governor Abbott, which restricted municipalities' rights to determine how they will work with or against federal immigration enforcement. If you win in November and you were sent a bill either banning sanctuary cities or restricting future local laws that create sanctuary cities, would you sign or veto that bill, and why? Corey. 90 seconds for this.
I believe that Texas should be an area for everybody to come here freely, travel freely, do business freely. And I think the whole state of Texas should be a sanctuary spot. It should be the land of the free. And that means people can come here and we don't even need to check their ID. If there's any restrictions on people freely coming here, I wouldn't sign it.
Thank you. Mrs. Glass?
A veto. Oh, our Texas sovereignty requires that we let Texans run Texas. This bill, passed by our legislature, and signed by the governor, really lets the federal government run Texas because it tells the local law enforcement, you have to enforce federal immigration law. That's wrong. The 10th Amendment says we don't have to. Sheriff Mack went to the Supreme Court in the Brady Bill situation, and the Supreme Court said states do not have to enforce laws, federal laws, even if they're constitutional. And this one probably isn't. So no, what we should do is treat everyone equally, prosecute citizens and non-citizens alike. And if we are prosecuting someone, we shouldn't be forced to turn them over to the federal government. That's for us to handle. And if we don't have any problem with them, if we let them go, if they get the case dismissed, we're going to let them go. And we're not going to hold them because the federal government says we should. Let Texans run Texas.
Mr. Tippett?
Having been in local government, for me, this is a no-brainer. I would veto such a bill, absolutely. Local government knows best how to run local issues. Local safety should be left to the local government. The federal government and the state government should not be telling the local government how to run their affairs.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
There's a lot of laws and a lot of government agencies that think they have the right to hold an opinion on the movement of peaceful people. I'm here to tell you and them they have no such right. There will be no bills sent to me because I'm going to fire these people. They shouldn't have this power.
All right, thank you very much. Now here's where it gets interesting and probably a little different than other forums typically that we have, is where we will allow a single person to ask a question for clarity from another specific candidate or rebut something that they've said, and they'll have 60 seconds to do so. Does anybody here have a question for another member of the panel here?
I think we all agreed.
Wow, that's good. Okay, so last year, as always, the state's largest component of our $217 billion two-year budget were public schools and Medicaid funding. The state is constitutionally mandated to fund public free schools. It's estimated that we have a $2.5 billion Medicaid shortfall in 2019, all the time while public educators are claiming their schools are underfunded. What practical steps would you take as governor to bring our budget, and in particular, these two line items, Medicaid and education, under control? And now we will start with Ms. Klass first.
You're right to focus on these two issues because they're about 60% of our $217 billion with a B, budget. So Medicaid, we should opt out. It's an unconstitutional federal program to start with, but we should take the serious savings that would create and use it to create our own Texas program. Whatever it is Texas wants to provide for services for our citizens, we should do that, and we will have a lower cost but better services. It's the education. Yes, we're required by our Constitution to have an education system so that, and it's in the Constitution, the citizens understand their liberty and know how to defend their rights and their freedom. And we're not doing that in our Texas schools because it's been federalized. Just face it, the schools have been effectively federalized and almost but destroyed. So we need to take that back, get the federal government out of education totally. And it's not just getting away with the Department of Education. They have very insidious ways that they control the local schools, bypassing the state legislature and government altogether. And that must stop because Texans must run Texas. We need to get rid of school property taxes and replace them with nothing, because you really don't own your land if you have to pay taxes or you lose it. And this must be a complex, complete education overhaul. See my website, kathyglass.org, for more details. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Glass. And Mr. Tippett.
It's very difficult to answer a question in 90 seconds that took 90 seconds to ask. However,
It's a big question.
It is a good question. It's a very loaded question. It's a very important question. And the Texas Constitution, Section 7, Article 7, Section 1, clearly states that Texas must provide an efficient and free school system for Texans. Nothing in there does it say that Texans must be educated by Texas. The first two statements is efficient and free. Those are contradictory in and of themselves because number one, we all know it's not efficient or we wouldn't be here. And number two, it's not free because the remainder of the 20 sections in there and some 27 odd pages describe how they are going to tax you to take it. Now, the answer is not a simple answer. But John F. Kennedy said, "We will take a man to the moon and bring him back safely in this decade." Nobody had a clue how to do that, but he knew how to lead. He set a goal line, and as governor, I will set the goal lines of what we must achieve and then put the best people to achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tippett. Mr. Smith.
Can I get a show of hands? Who here consented to the Texas Constitution personally? I didn't. It's going to be hard to have a budget for things when I've eliminated extortion, called taxes. I think I just heard a Libertarian candidate, Ms. Glass, suggest that she was going to continue to use extorted money to form a Texas Medicaid. And I'm pretty sure he just said because the Constitution says so, he's going to continue to use extorted money to pay for schools. That's not happening with me. Thanks.
And thank you. Mr. Watkins.
Both of these things should be up to people. They should be privatized. Education should be privatized. Taxation is absolute theft. If I'm governor, I won't sign anything, no bill, nothing come across my desk that has taxation on it towards schools or Medicaid or any of that. No matter how much you're stealing, it's still theft. We need to stop stealing from people. Thank you.
And thank you. Now, if anybody would like to ask for clarification from any other candidate? No, I think it already had kind of been done. So, all right. So for our next question, Mr. Tippett will be answering first. Donald Trump presses forward with his campaign promise of building a border wall. As governor, what actions would you take to either aid or impede his efforts? Mr. Tippett.
Well, I don't keep bricks in my house, or I would have no television sets anymore. I did catch a little snippet that the wall just increased by 10 feet yesterday in Donald Trump's speech. The whole idea of building a wall, anybody who has ever lived in Texas knows how ludicrous that idea is. It is shameful that a campaign promise has turned into something that our generations are going to be fighting and paying for one way or another forever to come if we ever built a Trump monument of that size. As Texas governor, I will back the landowners along the Rio Grande with every fiber of my being to fight that wall. And if it is a fight that has to go on, I don't care with what means, it will be taken on.
Thank you, Mr. Tippett. Mr. Smith.
So the libertarian principle that I'm sure you're all familiar with is that no one has the right to control the movement of a peaceful person. Unless you own the land, of course. If it's private property, you control it. Did you know that Texas has its own 3-branch military? I had no idea until a few weeks ago when I started reading. Miss Glass's website, where she plans, as a libertarian, to take control of one of the branches of this military to replace border security. I just thought it was interesting thinking about a libertarian winning an office with a private, with a government extortion-funded military to provide border security. Now, granted, in your defense, she's going to use this extortion-funded military to police private property. So there's one good thing there. No borders for me, thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Watkins.
As governor of Texas, I would oppose Donald Trump and giving him the middle finger against his wall. We don't need a wall here in Texas. As a matter of fact, I say we tear down the walls that we have and the fences that we have and have an open border for people to come here freely. We need to use nullification against Donald Trump and his government thugs, and if they come here, the federal government, we need to arrest them. There's no wall when I'm governor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Watkins. Mrs. Glass.
I would take President Trump on a helicopter ride down the Rio Grande and just point out, you can't put the border or a wall down the middle of the river. You can't put it on the southern side. That's an act of war against Mexico. And you can't put it on the northern side because that's an act of war against Texas. And you don't want that. And we would get that cleared up right then. But because the border, the wall is a metaphor for a secure border. Because I listen to people and what they want, I know that people do not want an open border. They don't want a closed border. They want a secure border. That's why I do so well with Hispanics and on the border counties. I go there. I know what they want. And my method, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for touting me. It saves some of my time. You're plugging my program. But we can do this with our militia to go down there and assist local law enforcement in saving private property and protecting it from trespass. We have a 12,000-mile border with Mexico. That's most of the 2,000-mile for the whole United States. We know borders. We've done this before. It's just that we need a little bit of help. And if we have a welcoming immigration policy, which Texas should, it's not a federal function, and we secure our own border, we let Texans run Texas, and we will fix this broken immigration system, and we'll fix the problems on the border ourselves. Thank you. KathyGlass.org.
Thank you very much, Ms. Glass. All right. So, next question. After tragedies such as the recent Texas church massacre and Florida school shootings, many concerned and well-meaning citizens demand stricter gun control laws. Should our legislator bow to their constituents' demand and pass a law banning certain gun types, or as Mr. Trump has recently suggested, bump stocks, or limit magazine capacities? What would you do as governor in that scenario? And the first person to answer that is Mr. Smith.
I was watching this stuff unfold on my television, and I found myself yelling, "You do not have the right to control what peaceful people own." That's my gun control argument. That is the argument. You do not have the right. Shout out to the people running this event. I'm very appreciative for their volunteer work. Shout out to the AV crew in the back working hard to keep this thing recorded. Let's say that I didn't want him having a gun. I have no right to go over there and use force to prevent him from doing so. The four of us on the stage couldn't get together and vote away his right to do so. Everyone in this room couldn't get together and vote away that guy's right to carry a gun, as long as he's peaceful with it. Every single Texan in this state cannot get together and vote to remove his right to defend himself. You don't have the right. It's not a right. Period.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Watkins.
I oppose any gun restrictions there is. I think we should move the other way. I think we should start using nullification on the federal government, on their gun laws, rules, and regulations that we have now. If I want to own a AK-47 and a 100-round drum and that thing goes automatic, then damn it, I should be allowed to do that. I'm a staunch believer in gun freedoms, and there shouldn't be any law, no rule, no regulation on the right to defend yourself, period.
All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Glass.
The tragic shootings at schools has got to stop. We've got to do something to save our children. And I think at least 5 things need to be done. End gun-free zones. It's nothing but a killing field for disturbed persons. 2, arm responsible adults on campus. 3, have better way to provide mental health services. We can't kick people out on the street and medicate them with psychotropic drugs and think that they're not going to deteriorate. 4, we need a new program for teachers to be able to identify at-risk children before they become violent and obvious so we can intervene and turn that around. And 5, we need to get the federal government out of this business, nullify those unconstitutional gun laws, NICS, and get the FBI out of local policing. This Florida shooter, the local police went to his house 39 times, yet they did nothing because they were waiting on the federal government to do things. We need to restore our law sovereignty, take back these functions that we and only we can handle, and let Texans run Texas.
Thank you, Mrs. Glass. Mr. Tippett.
I won't stand up here and tell you how much I'll defend the Second Amendment or how many weapons I have or how many bullets I have, because it'd probably scare most of you. So, but that's just a gimme. The issue on these shootings is the fault is placed in the wrong place, as always. My heart, my thoughts, my prayers go out to people, victims of these senseless acts. The problem is not the weapons, and it never will be the weapons. And will there ever be a solution to stop them? There never will be. Killings have been going on since the dawn of times, and they will go on long after we are gone. However, the true issue is the issue of mental stability, the issue of these people having problems in dealing with life, in coping with life. That is the problem. Every time there has been a shooting like this or an incident like this, from Columbine all the way down to this last one, my wife, who is a special needs teacher, points out they could have caught that when he was 2. We need to do more about addressing the issues that create this, not in preventing the guns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does any member of the panel have a follow-up question? Mrs. Glass?
Yes,
60 seconds.
To Mr. Tippett. I think people, this latest one has galvanized people. They want solutions. They want something done. They don't want a que sera, sera. That's a little Spanish there for you. Moment.
And Mr. Tippett's 30 seconds to rebut.
Should I answer that in Spanish? Or, no, sorry.
Sí.
Sí. That's fine and well, Kathy, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying that everybody is looking for an scapegoat. Everybody wants to put blame, and I'm the same way. In an accident, the first thing I do is I want to blame somebody, but we are putting the blame, and the people are galvanizing against something that is the wrong issue.
Thank you very much. We will need at least 2% in the governor's race or 5% in another statewide race to maintain our ballot access. The 2020 National Convention for the LP will be in Austin. So it would be quite the embarrassment if we lost ballot access the year we host our national convention. What do you bring to the table that would ensure that we come to the national convention in 2020 as a state party with full ballot access? And I believe Corey Watkins will begin.
I'm going to do the same thing that I've been doing for 8 months, and that's going across Texas, spreading this really bold message of freedom and showing libertarianism in its purest form. I'm not beating around the bush with it. I'm letting it out of the box. There's no reason to be politically correct with our message. It's in the platform. Let's tell people taxation is theft. Let's tell people no guns, no rules, no laws, no regulations on it. Let's tell people you can grow 100 plants of cannabis and sell them to whoever you want. Those are bold messages, and that's what we've been doing across Texas. That's why we've been attracting all kinds of people, not just libertarians, but Republicans, Democrats, young people, black people, Hispanic people. We're going to show up to the convention very poised and ready to go with a lot of delegates. So That's what I'm going to continue doing. I believe this campaign is way past the 5% mark with how bold our message is and the people that we're bringing in. We're bringing in people who have never been involved before, and that is a recipe to win. We need that. We need Democrats quitting their party. We need Republicans quitting their party. We need people like the 62-year-old lady who sent me a message who's never voted before, who got involved and voted before because of this campaign. That is a recipe to win. We need to stop talking about 5% and start talking about winning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Mrs. Glass.
Well, I've done it before, and I can do it again. 2% of the governor's race gets us ballot access for 4 years and solves the problem that Mark Miller identified about 2020. So what will we do different this time? Well, we've still got the bus, and we're going to go on tour, but we're not going to 254 counties. We're going to target where the media is and where we can get publicity. I get publicity when I roll in with a bus. I get on TV anytime, but when I'm not there is when I don't get talked about. And so we have a paid media consultant, and that's his job, to make sure I'm talked about in the press when they talk about the governor's race. I have staff, I have resources, I have energy, I have a headquarters on 290. And we are going to unite this party. And before, we had some division in 2014, but it's better. We've almost cured that. And under my campaign, it's top of the ticket. I know how to help down ballot races. I know how to work with candidates, go into their locale, and get them media coverage that they couldn't get on their own. So this is what we're going to do. 2% and beyond. KathyGlass.org. Oh, and bold, in 2018, smoking marijuana in public is not bold. Arresting federal agents who violate the Constitution, that's bold.
Thank you, Mrs. Glass. Mr. Tibbetts.
I will not run a campaign to maintain ballot access. That's not why I became a candidate. I became a candidate to win. There are other campaigns out there that will ensure us ballot access. I am going to run a campaign like nobody's seen before. I intend to unite the party, to reach out to everybody. I am the first candidate for governor who is both bilingual and bicultural. I intend to reach out to all Texans. I have a very fantastic team. I have good advisors like Mr. Mark Miller, Dr. Mary Ruart, Pat Dixon. I have a very good team that I would like to thank, but I am not running a campaign just for ballot access. We have to go beyond that. I am running a campaign to unite everybody, a campaign that is united for liberty, unidos por libertad.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tibbetts. Mr. Smith.
So our first job is to make more libertarians. Small L if we have to, big L, if we can. Our first job is to expose everyone we can to the hidden gun in the room of the government, to free minds. If we concentrate so much on percentages and ballot access that we fail at that, then we've failed. I'm not saying the rest isn't important. For that, I would tell you that the best way to get someone motivated behind you is to stand for something strongly, deeply, passionately, unwaveringly, principled. If you had an option, if you had the opportunity to go to a firing line, to stand in front of a firing squad, to lower property taxes 2%, no one here would do that. That's absurd. If you had the opportunity to go stand in front of a firing squad, to free your children and all future generations of this oppressive government, me first. I want my kids free. That's why I'm here.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Watkins has a question for one of the other panelists, 60 seconds.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think smoking cannabis in public is pretty bold. I also think standing with an AK-47 in the street at midnight cop watching is pretty bold. I think joining the open carry crew before it was cool without doing a political statement is pretty bold. I think I've made many bold stances before.
All right. And also, I'll make a executive decision here. That seemed to be a rebuttal to what Mrs. Glass said. So if you'd like to rebut that, Mrs. Glass, for 30 seconds, you have the option.
Well, I spoke at the first open carry event in Temple. I was at the big one at the Alamo, spoke there. I've done my own share of walking. I'll be bold again in 2018. I've never smoked marijuana. I've never been present when someone did it. Now, that's bold, but it's your freedom, it's your liberty. And if I had a medical disease that it would treat, I'd be looking for, I'll come to Corey and as my source.
Thank you. So, as Jax Finkel told us earlier, speaking of marijuana, currently 8 states have legal recreational cannabis and 29 states have legal medical marijuana. As governor, what steps would you take towards joining these states or maintaining our status as a state that treats all marijuana use as criminal activity? And I believe, Mrs. Glass, you are the first? Yes.
Well, yes, we should pass this legislation. And I'm a little more optimistic. I know Jax has her own perspective, and it's probably more informed than mine. But I think with the right governor, we can get this done in the next legislative session. Like I said, I've never smoked, but in the 80s, I was on the board of directors for the Drug Policy Forum, Jerry Epstein and Dr. Jerry Robinson, who's now passed on, and I worked with them tirelessly. And I did what we could in the day. It was radio talk shows. That's all you could do to get the word out. And I was a frequent caller in, and they knew what I was going to talk about. So it hasn't been a passion of mine like it has been Corey's in recent times. I hadn't been my focus. But yes, this is something we need to do, and it's simple, and other people are doing. And Texas is taking second place in this. We're letting other states pass us by, and so we should back to let Texans run Texas. That means we should nullify these unconstitutional drug laws in Texas, and on our own, we should repeal marijuana prohibition.
Thank you. Mr. Tippett.
As governor, I need a new mic. As governor, I will do everything in my power to decriminalize cannabis. This is a wonderful medicinal plant. It has medical qualities that far surpass FDA-approved drugs with little to virtually no side effects. It is a crime to keep this from Texas citizens. As governor, I will reach out to Corey to be my lead advisor on this subject. If somebody wishes to smoke cannabis, they should be free to do so. Our police force and our prosecutors should spend their time on policing and prosecuting true crimes, going after murderers, rapists, and punishing them, and no, they're not all coming over from Mexico. But if we freed up the police force and the prosecutors from prosecuting these victimless crimes, not only would we have a good revenue stream of taxation on the legalized marijuana, but we would free up a lot of manpowers, a lot of
10 seconds.
A lot of manpowers to go after true crimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tippett. Mr. Smith.
True crimes like taxation. Victimless crimes aren't crimes. Say it with me. Victimless crimes aren't crimes. This issue is so old. I feel like my whole life people have been trying to legalize marijuana. This is a harmless plant, and it's kind of embarrassing at this point. Like I travel the country, and I'm like, Texas still doesn't have marijuana yet. We still run in fear. We were recently quite embarrassed by the abduction of Adam Kokesh, just north of where I live. Corey and I showed up there to voice our concerns with the people at that jail. It's an embarrassment. It needs to end. It's evil. Enforcing victimless crimes is a crime worthy of being caged yourself. And I think our police could do with some ethics training in that area. That's all.
Thank you very much. Mr. Watkins.
It is time to bring Alexis Bortel home. It is. As governor, I will seek any way possible to make sure that we have the maximum amount of cannabis freedom possible. Like I said, if you want to grow 100 plants and sell them to your friends or a doctor or whatever, you should have that freedom to do so. There shouldn't be any law, rule, or regulation whatsoever against cannabis. And we started the Cannabis Open Carry Walks movement. We were frustrated at the legislator ignoring us. And so we're getting out in the streets and doing something. And so that's what this is about, the Cannabis Open Carry Walks movement. Check them out, a bunch of people here. So no law, no rule, no regulation on cannabis. This is a main issue with me, and I believe you should be able to do whatever you want with the plant.
Thank you very much. Do any member of the panel have a question for any other member of the panel? No? Okay. So it turns out we're against marijuana prohibition. All right. Who'd have figured? And this will probably be our last question here, and then we'll have our summaries after this one. And we'll be starting off with Mark Tippett, I believe will be the one to answer first. Recently, the U.S. Senate struck a deal where the budget passed a $91 billion fund for disaster relief. Much of that is destined for Harvey victims' relief. Many hurricane victims are claiming they aren't getting the aid they need and are pressuring Governor Abbott to tap into the state's $10 billion rainy day fund. As governor, how do you respond to those seeking help from these people who are seeking help from these devastating natural disasters? And Mr. Tippett?
It's a great question. Once again, pretty loaded, but nevertheless a great question. And let me just get this straight. It's called a rainy day fund, and people got rained out, and they need to tap into this rainy day fund. If $90 billion didn't cover it, and they needed some more money to cover rained out events, then they should be allowed to tap into it. But like I said, I don't know the details of how much money has been spent or how much money is still needed. But a rainy day fund is for rainy days.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
You mean the government spent $90 billion on something and people still complain that it wasn't fixed?
Surprise.
I was in touch with a lot of the activists. I believe you were one of them that went down to help during that tragedy. And the word I got back resoundingly was that the second responders, as I like to call them, just got in the way. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Corey. And then I picture, like Scrooge McDuck in a tall building, swimming through $10 billion of stolen money. And I'm like, why are we letting him keep that? That's ours. I'm going to go get it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Watkins.
I say we give the $90 billion of theft back to whoever we stole it from, and I would do the same thing that I did when it happened. I would go help my people. We raised over $10,000 to help out Harvey victims, and we went down there and hand-delivered these things to ourselves and put it on camera for people to see it. And that's what we should be doing. And when we were down there, yes, the message is what the hell is the government doing besides getting in our way? The people who went down there were the people who provided the real help. And that's what I would do, what I did, help my people.
Thank you. Mrs. Glass.
This is one unconstitutional federal act that I wouldn't interfere with, and that's the federal government giving the money back to the Texas taxpayers who paid the money into it. So I'm not going to interpose myself between the Harvey victims getting the money. But as far as whether you get Texas money or not, I would say no, because they call it a rainy day fund, but it's a rainy day for the entire state and not selected individuals. I'm a Harvey survivor, and I don't want the money. What we could use it for is help Texans Run Texas, is put it to rebuild the Addicks and the Barker Reservoir, which is infrastructure and is a different thing than helping individuals. We should do that because the Army Corps of Engineers owns that and maintains it, or they don't maintain it. They knew it was flawed. A lot of this tragedy happened because we didn't repair those reservoirs. The dams for the reservoirs. So we could use the rainy day fund to fix that, and that would be a good use of the money. But we do need to use the rainy day fund for other things because hard times are coming. You can't have a $20 trillion debt and more growing and expect there not to be some financial collapse sooner or later. That is a sum that can never be repaid, and we're going to have a total economic collapse. Texas is going to need those monies to see us through those hard times.
Thank you, Mrs. Glass. And actually, I have a question. Have you already asked a question before?
I have not asked a question.
Okay,
I
well-
would like to pitch a question to Ms. Glass because she's talking about Texas money and public works projects. Is taxation extortion? And if it is, why are you planning to use it?
Well, part of it is extortion. Sales tax, maybe not. A road tax, fuel tax is not. That's a user fee. So there are things that you can do, but we are not here to solve all the problems of the world. We're not here to instantly ensue a libertarian nirvana. We're here to increase our freedoms and reduce taxation and reduce government. And if we can cut it in half in my first administration, I think that's a good thing.
Thank you.
I'm here to save the world.
And at this point, we are going to do a little bit of math. It looks like we've got probably time for everybody to wrap up. But Mr. Tippett, did you have a question?
I just had a quick question for Ms. Glass, more than a question, a clarification. If the rainy day fund cannot be used for some Texans, is what I'm understand you're saying, it can only be used for things that affects all Texans. So until we all become zombies and have got a disease, then we can't use it, or I don't understand.
Well, that helps. It broadly helps Texans, not pinpoint certain people and help them as individuals, but helps us a broader appeal than that. Like getting us out of a financial collapse, instituting things that we will need when the federal dollars stop coming. So. That's what I think it is for. I do not think it's for individual charity. And no, we can't give it back to the people that paid it in. It's from sales tax. Do you keep your receipts? Would you know how much to claim to get it back? Actually, I do, but most people
Time's
don't.
up, Ms. Glass. Thank you. All right, so I think if I ask one more question, we're going to go over time without everybody having an opportunity to do their wrap-up. So actually what I'd like to do is go in reverse order for the summaries and wrap-ups. So Mr. Smith, if you'd like to go ahead, 2 minutes.
First of all, in my intro, I forgot to mention, I am so honored to receive the Mises endorsement for this position. I'd say round of applause for Mises. That's amazing. Then I want to remind everybody why we're here. The ultimate libertarian goal. What is it? Why are we all doing this? Why are we driving across across this great state and sitting in this semi-humid room listening to these people? What's the goal? Why are we doing it? It's because we want to free the world. And what does that mean? It means removing non-consensual mechanisms of control over people's lives. That's the government. Winning is removing the government and putting consensual structures in place. So, what does that mean? It means if we win, we don't need this anymore. We don't have counties and chairs and elections and delegates. We get to go home and be free and live our lives. Let's not forget that goal. Thank you. Oh, lead yourselves.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Tippett.
El respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. I am bilingual and bicultural. And those words were spoken over 150 years ago, and they are as true today, and they are part of the libertarian philosophy as ever. They are the respect for the rights of others is peace. I want to run a campaign that will invigorate and unite the Libertarian Party. I want to reach out to all Texans, Democrats, Republicans, independents, all walks of life. I want to reach out to the Latino community. I know that we can gain all of their votes. It is the Texas party. We are the Texas party. We need to make everybody know that we're the Texas party. We need to reach out with a message, a simple message of united for liberty, unidos por libertad. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Glass?
Well, this is not my first rodeo, and I've learned a lot from the two prior campaigns. And I just go over some things that I want you to remember, because I am seeking your nomination. I would be pleased and honored, and I think I would do well for you. I wouldn't let you down. But I have the resources, have a campaign headquarters, I can get media attention. I have a sense of humor, and I have a low sense of self-importance. I can work with people and teams. I listen to what voters want, and I frame my issues over there. They have problems. I share libertarian solutions. I don't have a pet peeve or a pet project that I'm campaigning on that the voters don't care about. And I know that people on the border, I know what they think about the border, and I know I can say, no wall, but a secure border. And so I listen to what they say, and I act on it. I don't say anything I don't mean. I'm disciplined. I'm focused. I have a website. I have money in the bank, and we're well financed. So I think I would be a top of the ticket that you'd be proud of, and the other candidates would be proud and happy to run with me. So I have a website, kathyglass.org. So there's been great questions, but you can't answer everything in 90 seconds. So you need to flesh it out, and most of these issues are on my website. I ask you to visit that, go see my Facebook page. I have 11,000 likes, and that's something to say for a libertarian candidate. And Kathy Glass for Texas governor, and so please check me out. I'm asking for your support. I believe I deserve your support, and I won't let you down. Together, we will take our sovereignty back here in Texas. We will let Texans run Texas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Glass. Mr. Watkins?
I am an activist. I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to come up here and tell you things and promise you things. I'm an activist. I've told you about gun freedom, and I've already done it. I've stood in the streets and I fought for gun freedom. I was an activist doing so. I talk about police accountability. I'm not telling you that I'm going to do it. I already did it. I stood in the streets holding police accountable. I tell you that I love cannabis. I'm not campaigning to tell you what I'm going to do. I've already started doing it. I'm an activist, not a politician. I say we do whatever we can to put the middle finger to the system and create more freedom here in Texas. Corey Watkins, thank you guys.
Thank you very much. And in summary here, and we are just a little bit early, but I do want to say, hey, thank you very much to the candidates who made it from all over the state. We've got every bit of the geography of Texas represented here, and thank you very much for making the trek out here. Hey, Mr. Tippett's close by, right? Or where did, actually, do you?
Just across the lake.
Yeah, okay, he swam over.
Did you row over?
So, but I do want to thank everybody for keeping it, everybody kept their behavior nice, and that was very good. Everybody did very, very well. Thank you very much. Also, just a quick poll here, raising hands. Who here is planning on being a delegate to the state convention? You were talking to the right people. All right. Well, thank you very much again. Thank you all for attending, and we'll see you in a little bit in the Senate debate.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Great job.